Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 2022 City Council meeting. Due to the continued state of emergency related to COVID-19, we are not conducting in-person meetings until further notice. We continue to offer meeting access to the public by posting meeting information and materials on the city's website at www.cityofrochester.gov/public-meetings and streaming our meetings live on City 12 TV and the City Council's YouTube and Facebook pages. I encourage anyone who has not received a COVID-19 vaccine to discuss this with their physician and to visit monroecounty.gov/health-covid19-vaccine for more information. The meeting will come to order, and I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Here.
Councilmember Martin,
Here.
Councilmember Patterson,
Here.
Councilmember Pio,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Vice President Lupian,
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask the council to join me in a moment of silence for all the victims of violence across the community and in our county. Thank you. Councilmember Harris, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you very much, President Melendez. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have the approval of the minutes of the February meeting by Vice President Lupian.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting on March 15th, 2022 be approved as published in the official sheets of the proceedings.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record. The following documents are hereby directed to be received and filed. The mayor submits the following: administrative cancellation or refund of erroneous taxes and charges, March 2022.
Thank you. These documents will be received and filed. It is time for the presentation and reference of petitions and any other communications. Are there any petitions?
President Melendez, there were a couple of documents that were sent to us to be read into the record that we did not during Speak to Council. I have one here from Mike Rivera, who's the president of AXME 1635. I'm happy to read it into the record now if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Dear Honorable Mayor Evans, oh, sorry for the feedback, and Rochester City Council, as the president of AXME 1635, which includes city, civilian, full and part-time workers, Webster Transportation, Rochester Housing Authority, and the town of Williamson, I'd like to deliver comment regarding the upcoming RHA wage upgrade vote. Thank you to those who understand that workers of the Housing Authority have been woefully underpaid for almost a decade, and that it is past due time to rectify the harm done to the very people interfacing with families in our communities. The city of Rochester is in an unfortunate race for the top spot in child poverty for cities of similar size, and is on the other side of one of the most segregated borders of both race and income in our country, with surrounding towns to the east. Not only do I thank you for your anticipated support of this MOA, but I implore you to acknowledge the impact of lost wages on our members and their families. The years of poverty wages that Rochester Housing Authority workers have endured is unfortunate. It happened right before the eyes of former RHA management. Although we appreciate this interim patch, there is still work to be done. Regardless of the provisions of the MOA that you will be approving, we will be sitting down with RHA within the next few weeks to negotiate the AXME 1635-F successor agreement, an agreement which I hope will be more fair and equitable for the employees in the long term. I thank you, Mayor Evans, and esteemed city council members for listening to our issues and supporting our members every day. In solidarity with you, Michael J. Rivera, President, AXME 1635.
Thank you, Councilmember Gruber. We will now move to the reports of standing committees and action thereon. Councilmember Gruber, will you continue with the Finance Committee report, please?
I will. Before I announce this report, I will say I considered introducing legislation that bars City Council from having a meeting on the night of the Red Wings home opener, but I didn't get time to make it happen. So my apologies to that. We're going to start with the Finance Committee recommends for adoption the following entitled legislation, introductory number 119, authorizing an amendatory agreement relating to the Kiva Rochester program. Introductory number 120, authorizing the cancellation or refund of erroneous taxes and charges. Introductory number 121, approving wage and salary increases for employees of the Rochester Housing Authority. Introductory number 122, amending the 2021-22 budget to fund a new full-time employment position to assist with implementation of race commission recommendations. Introduction number 143, authorizing an intermunicipal agreement with the Rochester City School District for the Pillars of Hope initiative. Introduction number 144, amending the 2021-22 budget to fund the Lincoln Branch Library renovation project. And finally, introduction number 145, authorizing an amendatory agreement for telephone town hall meeting services. This report was respectfully submitted by council members Michael Patterson, Kimberly Smith, Mary Lupian, Miguel Melendez, and Mitch Gruber.
Thank you, Councilmember Gruber. That report will be received, filed, and published, and we'll proceed with the vote. Introductory number 119 is legislation authorizing a mandatory agreement related to Kiva Rochester program. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 120 is legislation authorizing the cancellation or refund of erroneous taxes and charges. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 121 is legislation approving wage and salary increases for all employees of the Rochester Housing Authority. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 122 is legislation amending the 2021-22 budget to fund a new full-time employment position to assist the implementation of race commission recommendations. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 143 is legislation authorizing an intermunicipal agreement with the Rochester City School District for the Pillars of Hope initiative. Before we vote on this matter, are there any needs to abstain from this particular legislation, Chief of Staff Smith, before we vote?
Just declarations by two members of council, Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Lupian, but there is no need for an abstain from the vote.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 144 is legislation amending the 2021-22 budget to fund the Lincoln Branch Library renovation project. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 145 is legislation authorizing the mandatory agreement for telephone town hall meeting services. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Councilmember Patterson, the Neighborhood and Business Development Committee report, please.
To the council. The Neighborhood and Business Development Committee recommends for adoption the following entitled legislation. Introductory number 123, authorizing the sale of real estate and grant agreement with Flower City Habitat for Humanity Incorporated. Introductory number 128, authorizing agreement for property ownership readiness program. Introductory number 129, authorizing the acquisition by negotiation of permanent water line easements over 51 Holland Street. The Neighborhood and Business Development Committee recommends for consideration the following entitled legislation. Introductory number 124, local improvement ordinance establishing the cost of special services for the East Avenue Alexander Street Entertainment District for 2022-23. Introductory number 125, local improvement ordinance authorizing special work and services related to the South Avenue Alexander Street Open Space District for 2022-23. Introductory number 126, local improvement ordinance establishing the cost of assessments and authorizing an agreement related to the High Falls Business Improvement District. The Neighborhood and Business Development Committee recommend the following entitled legislation to be held in committee. Introductory number 127, amending the 2021-22 annual action plan relating to business development programs. This report is respectfully submitted by Council members LaShae D. Harris, Kimberly Smith, Council Vice President Mary Lupien, Council President Miguel A. Melendez Jr., and myself, Michael A. Patterson.
Thank you, Councilmember Patterson. That report will be received, filed, and published, and will proceed with the vote. Introductory number 123 is legislation authorizing the sale of real estate and grant agreement with Flower City Habitat for Humanity, Inc. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 124 is a local improvement ordinance establishing the cost of special services for East Avenue, Alexander Street Entertainment District for 2022-23. This requires a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupien,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes,
Thank you.
the motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 125 is a local improvement ordinance authorizing special work and services related to the South Avenue Alexander Street Open Space District for 2022-23. This also requires a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupien,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes,
Thank you.
motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 126 is a local improvements ordinance establishing the cost of assessments and authorizing an agreement related to the High Falls Business Improvement District. This requires a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupien,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes,
Thank you.
motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 128 is legislation authorizing an agreement for a property ownership readiness program. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 129 is legislation authorizing the acquisition by negotiation of permanent water line easements over 51 Holland Street. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Chairperson Patterson, do you have a motion related to introductory number 127?
Yes, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to discharge introductory number 127 from committee.
Is there a second? Okay, let's vote on discharging introductory number 127, which is legislation amending the 2021-22 annual action plan relating to business development programs. All in favor of discharging the introductory, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The motion carries.
Clerk, enter the affirmative vote of 8-1 into the record with Vice President Lupien voting no on discharging introductory number 127.
Also
like-
a no for me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'd like to speak to why I voted against releasing it.
Yes, Vice President Lupien.
So in agenda review, I asked the question, can I see the last 5 years of recipients of this grant and the amounts they received? And it took a couple of iterations and I got some of the information, but not all of it, which I feel like is important to see kind of the distribution of how this grant has been given out in the past and to understand the barriers for low to middle income business owners for getting this this money. And so I'm wondering if, I guess, what's the barrier to getting this information? I guess I understand that this isn't easily tracked. Is that correct?
Would someone from administration like to answer?
I'll give that. Commissioner Miller, if you can answer her question.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, Council Vice President. Unfortunately, one of our challenges is that we do not have an information management system or a way of easily pulling this information. So when a question is asked about something for the last year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, it is almost always a research project, which requires us to go back and dig that information out. And unfortunately, when we did get the report, we ended up with 1 year, actually 2 years, 22 and 21, which did not answer your question, and I apologize for that. We went back and got the remaining years, but did not get the amounts, which also did not answer your question. So I apologize for the fact that we, despite the fact that we had a couple of cracks at it, we're not able to answer your question completely in the time that we had available. We will continue to pull that information together and we will provide it, but obviously we were not able to get it for you today.
I do want to thank you for the work that you did put in, because I understand that it was a challenge and, I think maybe there was some, barriers to having the time to do that. I know that speaking for myself, I'd like to see, in the future, how those grants are coming out and for the department to be able to evaluate how well we're doing at getting money into the hands of low and middle income business owners. I also understand that there's a job requirement where if the owner isn't an LMI owner, that they have to provide jobs, and it may not be for the matching grant, but that may be for another program. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. But just to be clear, because I think there was some confusion, all of this money from these grants has to go to either low, moderate income individuals or businesses that are located in low, moderate income areas. So
right.
None of this money can go to anything other than that. I think we did explain that, and I know you did understand that. So
and I do. I think the problem is that most of the city qualifies for that, and I wouldn't consider some of the areas that maybe census tract say that they're LMI, but are high end areas, where there are pretty wealthy business owners that own several businesses that I wouldn't necessarily consider the type of business that I would want to see this money go towards. Definitely, I don't think is the majority, but I guess my point being is, how are we tracking how the grants are getting allocated, who they're going towards, if the jobs, that they say are required to be created are in fact, being held to that standard. And if there can be some kind of report ongoing of that information, I think that would be really helpful.
Sure. Yeah, we're happy to take a look at that. And we're always looking for ways to improve our processes. And one of the things that I've been, hopeful at putting in is some kind of a customer relationship management system and a process tracking system. We are spending all of our resources right now on land management, but it's my sincere expectation that as we get land management up and running, that we'll be able to work on some kind of a CRM, customer relationship management system that will allow us to access this information much more easily.
So
Um,
to the council and to the administration, I just want to state that, you know, the concerns that have been brought forward are noted. I look forward to continuing to work on these things. I know that the amount of questions that came in and the responses, while, you know, certainly there's still some ongoing questions, have given me some clarity as to how these work. And I know that most of these grants are between 5 and 8K, small business grants. And I think we continually want to make sure that we're investing in the ways that help the community in the most positive ways moving forward. And I think the Vice President and I will work together to make sure that we're doing, and the council for that matter, make sure that we're doing that in the most effective way. So with that, I'd like to move us into a vote on introductory number 127. So if we could proceed with that vote on introductory number 127, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I,
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Peel, the Parks and Public Works Committee report, please.
Parks and Public Works Committee recommends for adoption the following entitled legislation, introductory number 130, authorizing agreement and appropriating funds relating to Rochester Waterworks building renovation and gorge vertical access at High Falls Phase 1. Introductory number 131, resolution authorizing the appropriation of Environmental Protection Fund grant programs for parks preservation and heritage funds, and a contract relating to Rochester Waterworks building renovation and gorge vertical access at High Falls Phase 1. Introductory number 132, authorizing agreement and appropriations for the 2024 preventive maintenance project. Introductory number 133, authorizing the implementation and funding in the first instance 100% of the federal aid and state Marcellus program aid eligible costs of the state exchange forward preventive maintenance transportation federal aid project and appropriating funds therefore. Introductory number 134, authorizing agreements and funding modifications for the Genesee Street reconstruction project. Introductory number 135, authorizing an appropriation and agreement for Bronson Avenue playground improvements. Introductory number 137, authorizing an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Fairport for pesticide application to ash trees. Parks and Public Works Committee recommends for consideration the following entitled legislation. Introductory number 136, local improvement ordinance, establishing the operation, installation, maintenance costs of street lighting special assessment districts for 2022-23. Introductory number 138, local improvement ordinance for the care and embellishment of street malls for 2022-23. Respectfully submitted by Councilmember Mitch Gruber, Councilmember Willie J. Lightfoot, Vice President Mary Lupian, and President Miguel A. Melendez Jr., and myself, Councilmember Jose Pio.
Thank you, Councilmember Pio. That report will be received, filed, and published, and we'll proceed with the vote. Introductory number 130 is legislation authorizing agreement and appropriating funds related to the Rochester Waterworks building renovation and gorge vertical access at High Falls, Phase 1. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 131 is a resolution authorizing the appropriation of Environmental Protection Fund grant program funds and a contract related to the Rochester Waterworks building renovation and gorge vertical access at High Falls project, Phase 1. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 132 is legislation authorizing an agreement and appropriations of the 2024 preventative maintenance project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 133 is legislation authorizing the implementation and funding of federal and state aid eligible costs of the 2024 Preventative Maintenance Project and appropriating funds therefore. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 134 is legislation authorizing agreements and funding modifications for the Genesee Street Reconstruction Project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 135 is legislation authorizing an appropriation and agreement for the Bronson Avenue Playground improvements. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 136 is a local improvement ordinance establishing the operation, installation, and maintenance costs of the street lighting special assessment districts for 2022-23. This requires a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupian,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Introductory, the motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 137 is legislation authorizing an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Fairport for pesticide application to ash trees. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 138 is a local improvement ordinance for the care and embellishment of street malls for 2022-23. This requires a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupian,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Councilmember Harris, the Recreation and Human Services Committee report, please.
Yes, President Melendez. The Recreation and Human Service Committee recommends for adoption of the following entitled legislation. Introductory number 140, authorizing agreement for the veterinarian services. Introductory number 141, authorizing agreements and amendments to the 2021-22 budget for the Summer Jobs Connective Grant Initiative. Introductory number 142, authorizing an agreement for implementation of the Parent Leadership Training Institute. The Recreation and Human Services Committee recommends for consideration of the following entitled legislation. Introductory number 139, local improvement ordinance providing security and snow removal services for the public market for 2022 to 2023. This report is respectfully submitted by Councilmember Lachey D. Harris, Councilmember Willie J. Lightfoot, Councilmember Stanley Martin, Vice President Councilmember Mary Lupian, and President Councilmember Miguel A. Melendez Jr.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. That report will be received, filed, and published. We'll proceed with the vote. Introductory number 139 is a local improvement ordinance providing security and snow removal services at the public market for 2022-23. This requires a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupian,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 140 is legislation authorizing an agreement for veterinary services. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 141 is legislation authorizing agreements and amending the 2021-22 budget for the Summer Jobs Connect Grant Initiative. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 142 is legislation authorizing agreement for implementation of the Parent Leadership Training Institute. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Is there any additional miscellaneous business to come before the city council? If there are none, we are adjourned.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Go Red